I've been delivering pizzas for nearly 15 years now. People say I should have moved on to something better, but I never saw the point. The job is easy, I get plenty of time to myself, and I don't have to deal with an office full of people. I've got my dog waiting for me at home, and my friends, well, they're online. Video games are my way of socializing, and that's enough for me. I work for a Domino's in a city that's been changing fast. A lot of places switched to delivery apps, but my store still keeps a few drivers on payroll. I like being a delivery guy, the roads at night, the quiet moments between orders. It suits me. But last week something happened that made me question everything. It was late, maybe 10:30, when an order came in for a house in a neighborhood I knew well. Not the worst place, but sketchy enough that I kept my guard up. The streets were dark, and a few streetlights had been busted out, leaving everything in deep shadows. I pulled up in front of the house and saw a van parked in the driveway. A guy was leaning against it, smoking. He was tall and wiry, dressed in a hoodie, hands in his pockets. He watched me as I got out of my car, eyes hidden under the shadow of his hood. I've delivered to rough places before and learned not to judge. I approached, holding the insulated pizza bag. "Hey man, are these for you?" I asked. "What's on them?" he muttered. "One cheese, one pepperoni with anchovies." His face twisted. "That's cat food. So you didn't order them?" I turned toward the house, thinking someone else must have placed the order. That's when he stepped forward, too close. "Hand them over." His voice changed, lower, more demanding. I hesitated. "I need to know if you're the one who ordered." He pulled a switchblade from his hoodie pocket and flicked it open. "I said hand 'em over, fatty." I let go of the bag immediately. I wasn't about to get stabbed over some pizzas, but the moment I backed up, the van's side door slid open. 3 more guys jumped out, each holding a knife. They surrounded me before I could react. My car was running, driver's side door still open, but I wasn't close enough to make a run for it. One of them, short, stocky, wearing a ski mask, shoved me hard. "Empty your pockets, piggy." I did as they asked, pulling out my phone and wallet. There wasn't much, $15 in cash, some cards, an old ID. The guy with the switchblade grabbed the wallet, looked through it, then sneered. "That's it? I swear, man, I don't carry a lot of cash." He stared at me for a second like he was deciding something. Then he nodded to the others. "He's lying." That's when they started stabbing me. The first one hit my side, just below my ribs. A sharp, white-hot pain exploded through me. Before I could even react, another knife sank into my stomach, then another. I collapsed to my knees as they kept stabbing. My chest, my back, everywhere. I could hear the wet, sickening sound of blades tearing through my hoodie, through my skin. I stopped feeling the pain after the first few. I just felt cold. One of them kicked me in the ribs. Another stomped on my hand. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. I was gasping, struggling to stay conscious. The short one knelt beside me, patting me down for anything else. When he found nothing, he cursed and got up. "Waste of time. Let's go." I heard the van door slam shut. The engine roared to life. Then they were gone. I was left alone, bleeding out on the pavement, the drive to the hospital. I don't know what kept me from blacking out. Maybe adrenaline, maybe sheer dumb luck. Somehow I forced myself to move. My vision swam as I crawled toward my car. I barely made it into the driver's seat before everything started spinning. Blood was pooling in my lap, soaking into my torn shirt. My hands were slick with it. I gritted my teeth and pressed the gas. The drive was a blur. Dark streets, flashing lights, honking cars. I must have run a red light, maybe 2. But I made it. I barely had the strength to throw the car into park before I fell out onto the pavement. The next thing I remember was waking up in the hospital. Bright lights, antiseptic smells, beeping monitors. The doctor told me I was lucky. None of the stab wounds hit a vital organ or major artery. They'd cracked a few ribs and I'd lost a lot of blood, but I was going to make it. Apparently, the knives they used weren't long enough to get through the layers of fat on my stomach. I guess being overweight saved my life. It's been a few days since I got discharged. I'm still healing, but doing better than I thought. My boss said he'd understand if I wanted to quit, but honestly, I don't want to let this change me. I've been robbed before, even jumped once, but this was different. This wasn't about money. These guys just wanted to hurt someone. They still haven't been caught. The police took my statement, but I doubt they'll find them. Probably. Just some teenagers messing around thinking they were tough. But next time I might not be so lucky. For now, I just want things to go back to normal. Get my car cleaned, heal up, and get back on the road. I like delivering pizzas. I just hope the next house I deliver to isn't another trap, because I have a feeling they're not done yet. I never had much luck with jobs. My first was at a Walmart, and I thought I'd last at least a few months. But one day a customer snapped at me for no reason, and I quit the next day. Back then, I took insults personally. As I got older, I realized people with no money never get treated kindly by the world. I spent the next few years hopping between jobs, general stores, supermarkets, shopping malls. I was a high school dropout, so my options were limited. After my grandma passed away, I moved into her old apartment. It wasn't much, but at least I didn't have to worry about rent. I was desperate for steady work when I saw a flyer taped to a streetlight near my apartment. It was a job posting for a customer service role at Domino's. The pay wasn't bad, but what caught my eye was free leftovers every other day. Free food and no rent. That sounded like a lifeline. The next morning, I called the number. A man answered. The general manager, Jeff. He agreed to meet me that afternoon. The Domino's was only a 7-minute walk away, so I was determined to make a good impression. I lied my way through the interview. Jeff, a bald guy with kind eyes, asked how well I handled difficult customers. I told him I had years of experience and could stay calm under pressure. Truth was, I'd never lasted long anywhere. Jeff seemed satisfied. He gave me a quick tour of the store. The kitchen was in the back, leading to a small fenced-in yard that opened onto the sidewalk. There were 2 bathrooms, one for customers, one for employees. "You'll be working with Oliver," Jeff said. "He's our longest-serving employee. Knows this place better than anyone." Oliver was a tall, chubby man in his late 40s with a thick beard, balding hair, and a booming laugh. Customers loved him. He could joke his way out of any complaint, and no matter how rude someone was, he always smiled. "Seriously, dude," I asked him once, "how do you deal with these assholes?" He just laughed. "I'd rather kill them with kindness." At first, I thought Oliver was just being clever, a genuinely nice guy. But I'd soon learn what he really meant. It was a slow Wednesday evening, hardly any customers. I stepped out back for a smoke while Oliver manned the front. When I came back, I noticed a man standing on the sidewalk staring into the store. He was thin, with sunken eyes and uneven hair, like someone had cut it with a knife. He wasn't moving, just staring. I nudged Oliver. "What the hell's up with this guy?" Oliver chuckled. "Haven't you seen a junkie before?" But the man kept watching us for a full minute before finally stepping inside. "Welcome to Domino's. What can I get you?" I asked. He smirked but didn't respond right away. His bloodshot eyes scanned the menu and he was breathing heavily, like he'd run a marathon. Finally, he said, "Is it safe to eat here?" The question caught me off guard. Yeah, of course. We serve quality food." He nodded slowly. "I'll take a large margarita pizza. No toppings." He emphasized no toppings like he wanted to be sure I wouldn't add anything extra. I placed the order and walked to the kitchen. Oliver was prepping a delivery. He saw my face. "What's wrong?" "We got a weird one," I muttered. 10 minutes later, I brought the pizza to the man's table. He stared at it for a long time, but didn't touch it. "Everything all right, sir?" He murmured something barely audible. I leaned closer. I only caught 2 words. "Not safe." Then suddenly he lunged over the counter. Before I could react, the man grabbed Oliver by the uniform, dragged him down, and slammed him onto the ground. "What the hell?" I shouted. Oliver screamed as the man punched and kicked him over and over, yelling the same thing again and again. "Not safe! Not safe! Not safe!" The kitchen staff rushed out and tackled him, holding him down until the police arrived. Oliver was taken to the hospital. The man was arrested. We all thought he was just some drugged-out lunatic. But the real horror began when the police questioned him. At first, they thought he was incoherent, until he showed them a video. The footage was shaky, filmed from outside the back window that looked into our kitchen. It was clearly recorded in secret. In that video, I saw Oliver, but he wasn't alone. Next to him was a man I didn't recognize, probably a former employee. They were doing something horrifying. A cutting board was on the counter, and on it lay something raw and bloody. It wasn't meat. It was a severed human hand. In the video, Oliver was laughing, holding a cleaver in one hand and the wrist in the other. The other man was grinding something in a meat processor. Then Oliver said, chuckling, "Guess I'll have to make sure this one doesn't end up in the toppings." My stomach turned. The man who attacked him wasn't crazy. He had been trying to warn us. The police arrested Oliver the next day. They searched the store and found bags of meat in the freezer to Tom. But it wasn't beef, pork, or chicken. It was human flesh. They also found bones buried in the fenced yard behind the store. Turns out Oliver had been doing this for years, killing people, grinding their remains, and mixing them into the food. He wasn't just the friendly face everyone loved. He was a serial killer in a Domino's uniform. I quit immediately. For weeks, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined eating a slice of pizza with something extra in it, something that wasn't safe. I never planned to stay at Domino's. It started as a summer job, a way to make some quick cash between semesters. I figured I'd work a few months, save up, and move on. But school didn't work out, and life has a funny way of trapping you in places you never meant to stay. So there I was, 3 years later, still tossing dough, wiping sauce off counters, and listening to the same pop playlist every night. It wasn't all bad. The tips were decent, the hours were flexible, and most nights it was just me and a couple of other employees holding down the fort. We'd joke around during rush hour, talk trash about customers, then relax during the slow hours, just waiting for closing time. But everything changed when Frank started working there. He was older than the rest of us, maybe mid-50s, with patchy gray hair, a thick mustache, and skin that looked permanently oily. When our manager Kyle introduced him, Frank gave this weak handshake and said in a hoarse whisper, "Good to meet you." His voice sounded like broken glass being dragged across wood, raspy, strained, unnatural. From the start, I could tell something was off. He didn't talk much, didn't joke. He'd just hover, watching people work, his beady eyes following every movement like he was memorizing them. Kyle said he was a new delivery driver, but he seemed way too interested in everything inside the store, especially the back room where we kept the employee lockers, the security monitor, and the supply shelves. At first, it was small things, catching him standing near the lockers too long or peeking into the office when Kyle wasn't around. But it wasn't curiosity. It was something else, something uncomfortable, something hungry. One Friday night, I got stuck on closing shift with him, just the two of us. Kyle left early, tossing me the keys. "Lock up when you're done," he said. The store was dead quiet, no customers, no orders, just the low hum of the refrigerator and the smell of burnt cheese. Around 11:30, a family came in, parents and their 2 young daughters. The girls were maybe 5 and 7, giggling and chasing each other near the window while their parents ordered. That's when I saw Frank watching them. Not a casual glance, not a passing look. He was staring. His eyes locked on the girls, his breathing slow and heavy, his cracked lips slightly parted like he wasn't even aware of it. It wasn't curiosity, it was obsession. I felt something twist in my gut. "Hey, Frank," I called, forcing a casual tone. "Can you grab more cheese from the back?" He didn't move, didn't blink, just kept watching. "Frank," I said again, louder this time. He blinked hard, like snapping out of a trance. "Yeah," he muttered, voice raspy as sandpaper, and shuffled toward the back. That night I couldn't shake the image of his eyes, wide and empty, fixed on those kids. A week later I was working another evening shift. Kylie, one of our assistant managers, was on break in the back while I handled the front counter. Around 9:45 I heard the bathroom door creak open, followed by quick, light footsteps. I turned just in time to see Frank slip out of the employee bathroom and duck into the break room. Something didn't feel right. The break room was small, just a table, a mini fridge, and a row of lockers. But the way he moved, quiet, sneaky, made my pulse quicken. I walked over and pushed the door open. Frank was standing next to Kylie's purse, which she'd left on the table. His hands hovered over it like he'd just pulled away. "What are you doing?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. His eyes darted from me to the purse and back again. His fingers twitched. "Just looking for my phone," he rasped. His phone was clipped to his belt. I stared at him until he shuffled past me and left the room. When Kylie came back, I told her. She checked her purse. Her wallet had been unzipped. Nothing was missing, but it was enough. We told Kyle the next day. He brushed it off with a shrug. "Frank's just weird," he said. "A little awkward, but harmless." I wasn't so sure. That night I decided to watch him closer. Our store had 4 security cameras. One on the register, one on the entrance, one pointed at the prep area, and one covering the hallway that led to the bathrooms and break room. The quality was awful, blurry and grainy, but good enough to see what went on. When Frank left for a delivery, I checked the footage from earlier. What I saw made my blood run cold. The video showed Frank standing in that same hallway right outside the bathroom. The door was slightly open. Inside was Kylie, fixing her hair in the mirror. Frank was watching her, through the crack, for almost 2 minutes. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there, head tilted slightly, breathing visible even in the grainy footage. Then he stepped back and walked away. I felt sick. I didn't tell Kylie immediately. I didn't want to scare her. But I saved the clip, just in case. 2 nights later, it got worse. I was outside taking a quick smoke break around 10 p.m. When I came back in, Frank wasn't at the counter. I heard movement in the back, quiet, careful movement. I crept toward the break room door and pushed it open just enough to peek inside. Frank was standing in front of Kylie's locker. The door was open. His hands were inside. He froze when he heard the door creak. "What the hell are you doing?" I barked. He jerked back, eyes wide. "Nothing, I was just—" "Don't bullshit me." I stepped forward. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. For the first time, I saw something flicker across his face. Not confusion, not fear, anger. Something dark. Then just like that, it was gone. He muttered something under his breath, grabbed his jacket, and stormed out. I locked the door behind him. The next morning, I showed Kyle the camera footage. This time, he couldn't brush it off. Frank was fired immediately. Kyle even called the police, but they said there wasn't enough to charge him with anything. He didn't steal or harm anyone, they said. Just stay alert. That wasn't good enough for me. Later that night, I went through older footage, 2 weeks back during the 2 a.m. cleaning shift. That's when I found something that made my skin crawl. The footage showed Frank unlocking the back door. He still had a key. He slipped inside after closing, walked straight to the break room, and opened Kylie's locker. He pulled out her work shirt and smelled it, pressed it against his face, breathing it in. Then carefully folded it, put it back, and left. I sat there for a long time, frozen, my stomach twisted in disgust. We changed the locks, of course. Kylie quit a few days later. Said she couldn't work nights anymore, can't blame her. I stayed mostly because I needed the money, but every time I closed I felt it. The sense that someone was watching. Sometimes when I took the trash out, I'd swear I saw a shadow near the dumpster. Once I found muddy footprints by the back door. Long after we'd closed, the police never found him. Frank just disappeared. But sometimes when I'm driving home late at night, I get that feeling. The one that starts deep in your gut before your mind even understands why. Like someone's following me. And in my rearview mirror, I swear I've seen it. A rusted sedan, headlights dim, keeping just far enough behind that I can't see who's inside. Maybe it's just paranoia. Or maybe Frank's still out there, watching, waiting, smelling. When I was 27, I worked nights at a small, half-forgotten pizza shop called Pizza Junction on the edge of town. It wasn't a franchise or part of any chain. Just a lonely little building wedged between an abandoned car wash and a liquor store that smelled like stale beer. We stayed open until 2 a.m. for late-night orders, but after midnight, business was practically dead. It was usually just me, the fryer guy Eddie, and the manager Lisa. Lisa was a single mom, tough, no nonsense, with tired eyes and a voice that could either calm you or cut you in half. She worked double shifts to support her kid, a quiet 8-year-old named Owen. Sometimes she'd bring him in when she couldn't find a sitter. He'd sit in the office playing on his tablet, never bothering anyone. Eddie, on the other hand, was different. He was only 19 but looked older, tall, wiry with pockmarked skin and a twitch under his left eye that never seemed to stop. He had this awkward, too loud laugh and a habit of staring a little too long at people when they weren't looking. Still, he was harmless. Or so I thought. The first strange thing happened on a Thursday night. It was raining hard, the kind of rain that soaks through your shoes and hums against the metal roof like static. Lisa had brought Owen again, said her usual sitter canceled last minute. Around 11:30, we got one last delivery, a man calling from somewhere down by the old trailer park. Eddie volunteered to take it. When he came back, he looked pale, sweaty. "Everything okay?" I asked. He just nodded, then went straight to the bathroom and stayed there for 15 minutes. When he finally came out, his knuckles were red, like he'd been punching something. Lisa frowned but didn't ask questions. We were all too tired for drama. The next night, though, something felt off the moment I clocked in. Lisa looked stressed, more than usual. Her eyes darted toward the back room every few seconds. "Everything good?" I asked. "Yeah," she said quickly. "Just a rough morning." But later, when Eddie went out to smoke, she whispered, "You didn't notice anything weird about him last night, did you?" I hesitated. He looked sick. "Why?" She rubbed her forehead. "Owen said he saw him standing outside the office window last night." After we closed, I blinked. Maybe he was grabbing something from his car. "That's what I told myself," she said quietly. But the way Owen described it, he said Eddie was smiling. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The office window faced the back alley, a narrow strip between the store and the car wash where the dumpsters sat. It was dark back there with only one flickering light that buzzed like a dying fly. I tried to laugh it off. Kids imagine things, right? But just after 1 a.m., when I took the trash out, I froze. There was a sound coming from behind the dumpster. A slow scraping noise, like something metal being dragged across concrete. "Eddie!" I called out. No answer. The scraping stopped. Then from the shadows I saw movement. Tall, slow, deliberate. I took a step back, heart pounding, but when the motion light flickered on, the space was empty. Just wet pavement and trash bags glistening with rain. I ran back inside and locked the door. Eddie was already in the prep area, wiping down the counter like nothing happened. His hands were shaking. "You good?" I asked. He looked up, eyes wide, pupils huge. "Yeah," he whispered, "just tired." I didn't believe him. Saturday night was worse. Lisa didn't bring Owen this time, thank God. But she seemed distracted, checking her phone every 5 minutes, pacing near the window. Around midnight, Eddie offered to take over closing duties so Lisa could leave early. She hesitated but eventually agreed, giving me a quick smile. "Text me if anything weird happens," she said, half joking. When her car pulled out of the parking lot, Eddie turned to me. "You trust her?" "What?" He smiled, that strange, twitching grin. Lisa, you think she's a good person? Yeah, I guess. He leaned closer. You don't know what she does after work, do you? The hairs on my neck rose. What are you talking about? He just laughed, that loud, broken laugh, and walked away. After we closed, I started mopping the floor while Eddie restocked dough. It was silent except for the squeak of the mop and the low hum of the refrigerators. Then I heard something, a whisper. At first I thought it was the wind, but it came again, soft, trembling. Help me. I froze, staring toward the office. The lights were off, but the door was half open. Eddie? I called. He didn't answer. I walked closer, my heart hammering. The whisper came again, clearer this time, a child's voice. Please, let me out. My stomach dropped. I pushed the office door open. The lights flickered on. The room was empty. But the supply closet door at the back was slightly ajar. I reached for the handle. My hand was shaking so bad I almost dropped the mop. When I pulled it open, nothing. Just cleaning supplies, boxes, and old uniforms. I backed away, breathing hard. Then I turned and nearly screamed. Eddie was standing right behind me. He was smiling again, too wide, too still. You shouldn't be in here, he whispered. I stepped back. What are you doing? Looking for my phone. Your phone's in your pocket. He looked down, then back up. That twitch under his eye pulsed faster. You hear him too, don't you? He said softly. The boy in the wall. What? He tilted his head. He talks sometimes. When Lisa leaves, says he wants to go home, I didn't stay to hear more. I shoved past him, grabbed my jacket, and bolted out the front door. When I got to my car, my hands were shaking too hard to get the key in the ignition. Eddie was still standing inside, watching me through the glass, smiling. I drove home and called Lisa the next morning. She sounded groggy, half asleep, but when I told her what Eddie said, she went silent. Finally, she whispered, Don't go to work tonight. Please, why not? Her voice cracked. Because Eddie's not supposed to be there. He was fired 2 days ago. I froze. What? He showed up after his shift last Thursday and tried to take Owen from the office. Said he wanted to help him escape. I called the cops, but they couldn't find him. I changed the locks, but my mouth went dry. Lisa, he was there last night. She started crying. Oh, God. The police searched the shop that morning. They found the back door pried open with a crowbar. The office closet, the one I'd opened, had deep scratches along the inside like fingernails clawing at wood. And in the crawl space behind it, they found a small blue sneaker. Lisa identified it. It belonged to her son, Owen. He'd gone missing 2 nights earlier. They never found his body. Eddie was arrested a week later, hiding in an abandoned trailer, the same park he'd delivered to that stormy night. He confessed to everything. Said Owen was still there, still talking to him. I quit Pizza Junction the next day. I can't even drive past it anymore. Sometimes when it rains, I swear I still hear it. A faint whisper on the wind. Please, let me out. People think delivering pizzas is the worst part of working at Domino's. Late nights, rude customers, creepy addresses. But they're wrong. The real horror doesn't happen on the road. It happens inside the store, after midnight. I started working at Domino's in 2019. At first it was supposed to be temporary, just until I got back on my feet. But rent was cheap, hours were good, and my manager didn't care if I kept to myself. The store I worked at was one of those old ones on the edge of town, next to a dying strip mall. The sign flickered at night, half the bulbs burned out. It was open late, sometimes 3 or 4 a.m., mostly catering to drunk college kids or truckers passing through. On slow nights, it was just me, the night manager Eddie, and another driver named Tom. Eddie was one of those guys who took his job way too seriously. He'd worked there for nearly 15 years, always wore a crisp uniform, and insisted everything stay spotless, even at 2 a.m. when no one was watching. He didn't talk much, but when he did, his voice always sounded tired, like he'd seen too much and never slept. The first time I noticed something off was during cleanup week 3. Tom had already clocked out, leaving just me and Eddie. I was mopping the prep area when I heard a sound coming from the back, a dull thud, then a dragging noise. It was coming from the walk-in freezer. At first I thought someone had left a box unbalanced or maybe one of the crates had fallen over. I went to check, but before I could reach for the handle, Eddie appeared out of nowhere and slammed it shut. "Don't go in there," he said quietly. His face was pale. I blinked. "What? Why, I was just—" He cut me off, eyes fixed on the door. "Not tonight." And then he turned and walked away, leaving me standing there in confusion. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe he was hiding expired food or something. But the next night it happened again. Only this time I heard whispering. It was around 1:30 a.m. The store was empty. No deliveries, no customers. I was restocking the sauce containers when I heard a soft voice coming from the back. It sounded like someone talking quietly through the freezer door. A man's voice. Low, muffled. I froze. I called out, "Eddie? You back there?" No answer. I grabbed my phone flashlight and walked toward the back. The sound grew clearer, a hoarse whisper, but I couldn't make out the words. When I reached the freezer, the door was slightly open, cold air spilling out in slow, misty waves. Inside, the motion light flickered on, and for a split second I saw a shadow move, tall, human-shaped but wrong. It was bent at the shoulders, like its head was twisted too far to one side. The moment the light hit it, it disappeared. I slammed the door and backed away, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. That's when Eddie appeared again. He was standing behind me, silently, his face pale as paper. "You heard him, didn't you?" he said quietly. I stared at him, terrified. "Who the hell is in there?" Eddie sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." "Try me." He hesitated, then said, "That freezer, it's never supposed to be opened after midnight." He looked at the door. There used to be another manager here. His name was Rob. He worked night shifts like us. One winter, about 5 years ago, the power went out during a snowstorm. Rob went into the freezer to check the backup generator. Door jammed. By the time anyone found him, he'd been frozen solid. I swallowed hard. "You're saying his—" "I'm saying," Eddie interrupted, "sometimes he still thinks he's working." The next few nights I tried to brush it off. I figured Eddie was just trying to mess with me, or maybe he'd gone a little crazy from too many graveyard shifts. But the weird stuff didn't stop. Every night around 3 a.m. the freezer light would flicker. Every morning I'd find new handprints on the inside of the glass door. Long, pale streaks like someone dragging their fingers across frost. One morning I found the mop bucket frozen solid. Another time the thermometer in the prep area dropped to below 0 even though the heat was on. Then one night Eddie didn't show up for his shift. It was a Friday, busy night, and the store was short-staffed. I was alone in the back cleaning up around 2:45 when I heard the sound again. Thud. Thud. Then a faint metallic scrape. I turned toward the freezer. The door was half open. My heart sank. I took one step closer and saw something inside. Footprints, bare footprints, frozen into the frost-covered floor. They led from the back wall to the doorway, and stopped. I raised my flashlight. "Eddie? That you?" The light flickered, and I swear I saw someone standing in the corner. Pale skin, Domino's uniform half rotted away, lips cracked and blue. He turned his head toward me. His neck creaked like ice splitting, and in that rasping, frozen whisper he said, "Orders ready." I dropped the flashlight and bolted out of there, slamming the door behind me. I could hear him on the other side, the faint scrape of fingers against metal. When I turned around, something made my blood run cold. Every single oven in the kitchen had turned on by itself. The timers flashing the same number again and again. 3:07. That was the time listed on Rob's death report, I later found out. The next morning, the store was empty. Eddie's car was still in the lot, his wallet, his keys, all there. But Eddie himself? Gone. The police said maybe he walked out, maybe he quit. But when they checked the freezer, they found frosted fingerprints on the inside of the door. Not just one set, two. It's been years since I worked there. The store closed a few months after that. Rumor is they couldn't keep new hires. Every time someone worked a night shift alone, they'd quit within a week. One guy said he heard someone whispering his name through the freezer door. Another said he found a human-shaped patch of ice on the floor, like something had melted into it. Now, when I drive past that strip mall at night, the old Domino's sign still flickers. And if you look through the window, past the counter into the kitchen, sometimes the freezer light is on. And if you stand there long enough, you can see a man in a Domino's uniform, his skin pale, his lips blue, just standing there, waiting for the next order. Orders ready. People always joke that Domino's delivery drivers have seen it all. Drunk customers, weird houses, sketchy neighborhoods. But nobody ever tells you about the ones that don't feel real. My name's Jordan. I worked for Domino's in rural Tennessee back in 2020. It was one of those small-town stores that stayed open until 3 a.m., mostly to feed truckers, students, and the occasional night owl. I liked the night shift. Less traffic. No managers breathing down your neck. Just me, the road, and a couple of pizzas keeping me warm. That night started like any other. It was Friday, cold, around 12:30 a.m. I'd already made 3 deliveries and I was ready to close up when the phone rang. The order was strange right from the start. No address in the system, just a GPS coordinate about 20 minutes outside of town down an unmarked road. Probably one of those new houses that don't show up yet, my shift manager said. He printed the slip, handed me 2 large pepperoni pizzas and waved me off. But there was something weird about the receipt. No name, no phone number. Just a note at the bottom. Please deliver to the Red Barn. Knocked twice. Don't come inside, I laughed it off at first. Some kind of prank, I figured. But 20 minutes later, as I drove deeper into the woods, my confidence started to fade. The road got narrower, no lights, no houses, just trees pressing against both sides. My GPS signal kept cutting out, and the only sound was gravel crunching under the tires. After what felt like forever, I saw it. A red barn sitting alone in a clearing, faintly glowing under a flickering floodlight. There were no other buildings, no cars, no sound except the wind brushing through the trees. I parked and grabbed the pizzas, feeling the cold air bite through my jacket. When I got closer, I noticed something strange. The barn doors weren't closed. They were cracked open just a few inches, swaying slowly even though there wasn't much wind. Inside, I could see faint movement, a shadow pacing back and forth. I stopped a few feet away. "Domino's delivery!" I called out. No response. I waited a few seconds, then knocked on the barn door, twice, just like the note said. The movement stopped. Then from somewhere deep inside, a voice called out, "Leave it by the door." It didn't sound right. It was low, shaky, like someone trying too hard to sound calm. I set the boxes down on the ground. But before I could turn around, the voice spoke again. "Wait, come closer. It's cold." Please, my stomach twisted. There was something off about that tone, desperate but hollow. Still against my better judgment, I took a few cautious steps toward the open door. The smell hit me first. It wasn't pizza. It was something rotten, like damp hay mixed with decay. I raised my flashlight and shined it inside. What I saw made me take a step back. There were stacks of old Domino's boxes everywhere, hundreds of them, piled against the walls, moldy, torn, and covered in what looked like grease and dust. And near the center of the barn stood an old table. On it was a Domino's pizza bag, the same kind we use now, but completely covered in frost like it had been sitting in a freezer for years. The voice came again, closer this time. "You made it. Finally." Something moved behind the table. My flashlight flickered and I caught a glimpse of a man's face, pale, lips blue, wearing a Domino's jacket with an old logo from the 90s. He stepped forward and I saw that his uniform was wet. Not from rain, from something darker, thicker. His eyes were sunken, skin stretched tight like frozen leather. "You took your time," he said softly. "I've been waiting." I stumbled backward. "Look, I think you've got the wrong—" "Don't go," he whispered. "It gets lonely. Out here." He took another step, dragging one leg like it was half frozen. That's when I noticed his name tag. It said Rob. My stomach dropped. I'd heard that name before, the story other drivers told about the manager who froze to death years ago in a Domino's freezer across the state. I thought it was an urban legend. Apparently, it wasn't. I turned and ran to my car, slipping on the gravel. Behind me, I heard the barn doors slam open with a deafening bang. As I fumbled with my keys, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Something was standing in the doorway. Not quite human anymore. The cold was pouring out of the barn like fog, and for a second I swear I saw others behind him, faint outlines of more people, all in Domino's uniforms, watching. I hit the gas and tore down that road like a maniac. The GPS finally reconnected, and I saw something that made my blood run cold. The coordinates I'd driven to didn't point to a current address. They pointed to an abandoned property, condemned since 2005, the site of an old Domino's distribution barn that burned down during a snowstorm. The official report said several employees froze before rescue teams could reach them. The last confirmed death? A man named Rob Halpern, manager. When I got back to the store, my shift manager was waiting by the door, pale as a ghost. "Where were you?" he asked. I delivered to the Red Barn like the ticket said." He cut me off. "Jordan, there's no Red Barn in our system. That order was never sent out. The last delivery on the board was at 12:20. I handed him the receipt, shaking. He looked at it, frowning. Then his face went blank. The paper was blank. No order number, no coordinates, nothing. Except one faint line written in red ink. "Thanks for the delivery." I quit the next morning. But sometimes late at night I'll still get a chill when I drive past old barns on country roads. Because I know somewhere out there, deep in the woods, there's a red barn full of frozen uniforms and half-eaten pizzas. And a man in a Domino's jacket still waiting for his next delivery. And if you ever get an order that doesn't show up on the system with no name and no phone number, don't go. Just don't. Because when you see the Red Barn, it's already too late. When I got hired at Domino's, everyone told me the same thing. Don't work the closing shift. I thought they were joking. It was 2023 and I had just moved to a small town in Tennessee. Rent was cheap, hours were long, and the Domino's off Highway 8 was desperate for drivers. I didn't mind late nights, less traffic, better tips. But on my first night, the store manager, a quiet guy named Trevor, looked at me like he wanted to warn me about something. He said, "If you ever get a call that doesn't show up on the board, don't take it." No matter what, I laughed. "Like a prank order?" He didn't smile. "No, not a prank." He walked off without explaining. My first few weeks were normal. The usual routine, greasy boxes, blaring ovens, and a phone that never stopped ringing. But every night around 2:45 a.m., Trevor would make me lock the freezer door and unplug the order monitor for exactly 15 minutes. He said it was maintenance protocol. Except the freezer light always flickered, and I'd sometimes hear the faint sound of knocking coming from inside, slow and rhythmic, like someone was trying to get out. I told myself it was the compressor or maybe old pipes. Then one Thursday night, the order screen suddenly lit up again. Even though it was unplugged, it beeped twice. A new delivery popped up. No customer name, no phone number, just the words, 2 larges, Red Barn. Knock twice. I froze. My stomach sank. Trevor wasn't around. He had left early for a supply run, leaving me and another driver, Ricky, alone. Ricky looked at the order slip, frowned, and said, "Oh, hell no." That's the same address that made Jordan quit. "Who's Jordan?" I asked. He gave me a strange look. "The guy before you. Disappeared after a barn delivery. They never found his car. He said it like he half believed it himself, half thought it was a legend. But there was fear in his voice. I tried to laugh it off, but something deep inside me whispered not to go. Then the phone rang. I picked it up. Static hissed on the line, and then a man's voice, distant and muffled. "Orders ready." Then a long exhale. The line went dead. Ricky refused to take the delivery, but I was new, desperate to impress. I grabbed the 2 pizzas and loaded them into the car. The GPS didn't show an address, just coordinates. The same as in the system, a dirt road 25 minutes outside of town. The night was foggy, colder than it should have been for late summer. My headlights barely cut through the mist as I followed the winding trail deeper into the woods. After 20 minutes, I saw it. A red barn, half collapsed, sitting in the middle of an empty field. The floodlight above it flickered weakly, casting long shadows across the mud. The front doors were slightly open, and just like the receipt said, I knocked twice. "Domino's delivery," I called. No response. Then a whisper from inside, "Come in." I froze. Every instinct told me to leave, but the voice sounded human, tired, cold. "Hello?" I stepped closer. Inside, the barn was littered with old pizza boxes, faded, torn, some turned black with mold. My breath fogged in front of me. The air was freezing, like I'd just walked into a giant refrigerator. Then I saw movement in the far corner, a man standing perfectly still wearing a Domino's jacket. His name tag read Rob. His skin was pale, blue at the lips, frost forming on his eyelashes. He smiled. "You're late." I stumbled back, dropping the pizzas. "Sir, I think you—" He tilted his head slowly, bones creaking like cracking ice. "Do you know how many deliveries never made it?" Behind him I saw others, men and women, all wearing Domino's uniforms, their faces frozen in silent horror, skin cracked like porcelain. They stood motionless, watching. And then Rob said something I'll never forget. "They left the door open." "Now we can't close it." I turned and ran. But the barn doors slammed shut on their own with a metallic clang. The lights flickered, and suddenly I was standing in the Domino's freezer. The walls were metal. Frost covered every surface. My breath came out in ragged bursts of steam. And there, in front of me, stood Trevor, my manager, holding a flashlight. He looked terrified. "I told you not to take the order," he said. "What is this?" I shouted. He shook his head. "The first store that stood here wasn't a barn. It was a Domino's distribution center. It burned down during a snowstorm 20 years ago. The manager, Rob, froze trying to save the food inside. Since then, every few years, an order appears. A delivery to nowhere." I swallowed hard. "And if someone takes it," Trevor's voice cracked, "then they join him." The temperature dropped even lower. Frost began to spread up my arms through my jacket. Behind Trevor, the frozen employees appeared, their eyes glowing faintly blue. Rob's voice echoed around us. "The order's never finished. Someone has to deliver it." Trevor turned to me, panic in his eyes. "Get out," he yelled. He shoved me toward the door and I fell through it, landing hard on cold dirt. When I looked back, the barn was gone. In its place stood the Domino's store, its windows dark. Inside, I could see the freezer door slightly open, frost creeping across the tiles. Trevor was nowhere to be found. The next morning, the manager's office was locked. The cops came, said Trevor must have skipped town. But when they opened the freezer, there were 2 sets of footprints frozen into the floor. One large, one small, leading toward the back wall and stopping abruptly. I quit that day. But sometimes I still get emails from that old Domino's account, blank receipts with no order numbers. Just one line at the bottom. 2 larges, red barn, knocked twice. And when I look at the timestamp, it's always 3:07 a.m. Even now, I sometimes dream I'm standing in front of that barn again, the floodlight flickering, the smell of cold grease in the air, and from inside, a man's frozen whisper, "Orders ready." I run a YouTube channel called Urban Depths, where I explore abandoned buildings and haunted locations. I've filmed in forgotten hospitals, burned-out factories, and ghost towns lost to time. But nothing, and I mean nothing, ever prepared me for the Domino's barn. It started as a subscriber request. Hundreds of people commented under my haunted Pizza Hut video. Go check out the Domino's barn in Tennessee. People disappear there. They say the freezer is still cold. I didn't believe it. Sounded like another internet legend. But the more I researched, the stranger it got. Every few years, someone who worked for Domino's in that region vanished. Always a night shift driver, always around 3 a.m. And every missing person had one thing in common. Their last delivery was to a red barn that didn't exist on any map. So one October evening, I packed my gear, cameras, thermal sensors, spare batteries, and drove out to the coordinates I found buried in a decade-old Reddit thread. The road was long and empty, trees skeletal under the full moon. My GPS kept glitching, jumping between random locations before freezing on one single point. When I got close, I saw it, the red barn, just like the stories said, leaning to one side, roof half collapsed, a faint light flickering inside like dying candle flame. I parked, hit record, and started narrating. All right, guys, this is Urban Depths. It's 2:47 a.m. I'm at the location known locally as the Domino's barn, a place tied to several disappearances over the past 20 years. They say if you come here after midnight, you'll hear knocking and smell pizza dough and smoke. I laughed nervously after saying it, but my voice didn't sound right. Too hollow, too small against the silence. The front doors were chained, but one side had been ripped open, like something forced its way out. I squeezed through and immediately noticed the temperature drop. It was freezing inside. My breath fogged instantly. The smell hit me next, yeast and rot, like dough that had gone bad years ago but was still somehow fermenting. My flashlight cut through the dark, revealing Domino's boxes, dozens of them, stacked in neat towers, some modern, some so old the ink had faded away. I zoomed in with my camera and realized each box had a name written on it. Not customers, employees. Trevor, Jordan, Ricky, Rob. Every one of them had disappeared. A sudden thud echoed through the barn, metal on metal. I whipped the camera around. In the far corner, a freezer door stood embedded into the wall, newer than everything else, shiny stainless steel with frost around the edges. There were handprints on the inside of the glass. At first, I thought it was just reflection, until one of the hands moved. I stumbled backward, my heart slamming in my chest. Then faintly through the glass, I saw a face. Blue lips, frost-bitten skin, eyes open wide like they'd been frozen mid-scream. He wore a Domino's uniform. The name tag said, Rob. I started to run, but the barn door had closed behind me. My camera glitched, flickering static across the screen. Through the distortion, I heard something that made my blood run cold. A knock, twice. Then a voice, soft and raspy. Orders ready. The freezer door swung open with a hiss. Cold mist poured across the floor. Out stepped Rob. Behind him, more figures emerged, frozen, hollow-eyed, wearing Domino's uniforms from different decades. Their movements were stiff, mechanical, like they were being pulled by invisible strings. They circled me slowly. Who's hungry? Rob whispered, his breath freezing in the air. I dropped the camera and backed toward the wall. My flashlight rolled on the floor, flickering, and for a split second I saw something written on the far wall in frost. 307. Deliver it back. The air around me grew colder. My teeth chattered uncontrollably. My body felt heavy, like my blood was turning to ice. The last thing I remember was Rob's frozen hand reaching out, pressing a Domino's pizza box into my chest. Inside it wasn't pizza. It was a single receipt, with my name on it. Customer, Urban Depths order, 1 soul, hot and fresh. Status, delivered. I woke up hours later. The barn was gone. I was lying in the middle of an empty field, my camera beside me. Battery dead, lens cracked, screen still recording static. I got in my car and drove straight home, shaking the entire time. When I uploaded the footage, there were glitches I couldn't explain. Frames where figures appeared behind me that weren't there before. Faint voices whispering things like knock twice and don't come inside. And one frame, a single still near the end, showed a freezer door wide open with me standing inside. Only I never stepped inside. 2 weeks later, Domino's corporate contacted me. They wanted to discuss my video. They flew me to a small office in Nashville. The manager, a man in a red tie, looked nervous. He showed me a stack of papers. Internal reports dating back decades. Freezer malfunctions, vanishing employees, burned locations, all tied to one name, Rob Halpern. They never recovered his body. They just kept reopening new stores on the same property, hoping the problem wouldn't follow. It always did. That night when I got home, a pizza box was sitting on my doorstep. No logo, no receipt. Just the smell of dough and cold air seeping through the cracks. I opened it slowly. Inside was a Domino's name tag. It said Rob, and underneath, written in red ink, "Orders ready." My channel went dark after that. No more uploads, no more adventures, but sometimes if you watch the old Domino's barn video at exactly 3:07 a.m., you can still hear a knock in the background twice and see frost slowly spreading across the lens. And if you pause the video at the right second, you'll see me standing behind the camera, my breath misting in the cold, holding a Domino's pizza box, waiting for the next order. I've been delivering for Domino's Pizza for 6 years now. Not long enough to retire, but long enough to know the streets by heart. The potholes, the shortcuts, the neighborhoods where I should never get out of the car. Night shifts are my favorite. Fewer people, fewer cops, more tips, but there's something about this city after midnight. The way it goes quiet, like the whole world's holding its breath. That night started like any other. It was late October, cold enough that my breath fogged when I loaded the pizza bag into my old Honda Civic. The store smelled like yeast and fryer oil, and the warm hum of the ovens was comforting. Jeff, my shift manager, leaned over the counter. "Got one more before you clock out," he said, printing the receipt. "Cash order. Big tip if they pay." He handed me the slip. Address, 1523 Ravenhill Road. I frowned. "That's not in our delivery zone," I said. Jeff shrugged. "Guy called in. Said he'd pay extra. Gave the store number directly and not online. Just drop it off and come back. I'll close up. I should have said no. But I didn't. The drive was longer than expected. The city lights thinned out until I was surrounded by trees and dark houses. Street lights flickered and died one by one as I passed, leaving me with just the headlights and the hum of my car engine. After 20 minutes, GPS told me to turn onto a narrow road. No markings, no signs. It looked more like a dirt path than a street, the kind of place where you lose cell signal fast. I followed it anyway. Finally, after half a mile, the trees opened up and I saw it. An old 2-story farmhouse sitting in the dark. No cars, no lights, just a faint glow in one of the upstairs windows. I parked and grabbed the pizza bag. The air felt wrong. Still, heavy, like it was listening. I walked up to the porch. The boards creaked under my feet. The door was slightly open, just a crack. "Domino's delivery," I called out. "Got your order." No answer. I knocked. The sound echoed too long, like the house was empty inside. I turned to leave when a voice floated down from upstairs. It was soft, almost whispering. "Come in. Doors open." Every instinct screamed not to, but my job was to deliver. I stepped inside. The air was colder than outside. The smell hit me first. Damp wood, rot, and something sour beneath it like spoiled meat. The walls were lined with faded wallpaper, torn in places, revealing old wood beneath. Each step I took echoed like I was walking through a hollow box. "Hello?" I called again. "You ordered 2 pepperonis and a Sprite?" Silence. Then I heard footsteps. Slow. upstairs. I looked up and saw movement, a shadow crossing the hall above. I swallowed hard and forced my voice steady. "Hey man, I'm just gonna leave it here." No response. Something in me snapped. I just wanted to get out. I set the pizza on a dusty table and turned toward the door. It had closed. The knob wouldn't turn. It wasn't locked. It just wouldn't move. Like something heavy was pressing against it from the other side. That's when I heard breathing behind me. I turned slowly. Standing at the bottom of the stairs was a man, or what looked like one. Tall, gaunt. His Domino's uniform was old, the kind they stopped using years ago. The badge said, Rob. His skin looked frostbitten. His eyes were cloudy. "You're late," he rasped. I took a step back, heart hammering. I'm just dropping off." He tilted his head. "You shouldn't be here." Then he smiled, or tried to. The skin on his cheeks cracked as he did. I dropped the pizza bag and bolted toward the door again, slamming my shoulder into it. It burst open this time. Like whatever was holding it had moved. I stumbled out into the cold air, gasping. Behind me, the front lights flickered on for the first time. The porch was empty. When I turned to look back, the house wasn't there anymore. I swear, I was staring at an open field, just grass and a dirt path leading back to the road. No house, no driveway, nothing. I drove back to the store in silence. Didn't even turn the radio on. Jeff was outside smoking when I pulled up. "Back already?" he asked. I tossed him the empty pizza bag. "Who was that order for?" He frowned, glancing at the computer. "What order?" I pointed at the receipt still in my pocket. "Ravenhill Road." He typed something, then looked up at me. "Ravenhill Road burned down 10 years ago," he said quietly. "One of our drivers died there, Rob Halpern. You probably saw his name on one of the plaques. We keep it by the break room." I didn't answer. Jeff just stared at me. "You look like you saw a ghost." The next night I came back to work. Everyone acted normal, like nothing happened. But when I went to the back to grab the pizza bags, I froze. There, hanging on the hook, was a single Domino's uniform shirt. Old, faded, with a cracked plastic name tag still clipped to it. The tag read, Rob, and underneath it, my name, written in fresh red ink. Shift partner, Rob, night route. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, every time I drive at night, I see headlights behind me, following just out of view. Sometimes they disappear when I blink. Sometimes they stay for miles. But last night, when I pulled into a driveway to make a drop, the car following me stopped too. It was a white Domino's delivery car, same model as mine. And sitting in the driver's seat was Rob. He smiled through the windshield, lifted a pizza box, and mouthed the words, "Your turn." I've been delivering pizzas for Domino's for over 7 years. I know every shortcut, every streetlight that's broken, every neighborhood where I can cut through safely. But nothing prepared me for what happened on that night. It was Halloween week. Cold air cutting through my jacket as I pulled out of the store parking lot. The streets were empty, just me, the glow of streetlights, and the hum of my car engine. Jeff, my manager, had handed me a last-minute order. Customer, unknown address, 1523 Ravenhill Road. Order 2 large pepperoni special instructions. Knock twice. Leave the pizza on the porch. I froze. Ravenhill Road, the same place from the stories. I glanced at Jeff. "You're serious?" He nodded, pale. "Cash on delivery. I shouldn't even be giving this to you, but it's the only way it'll go out." I should have refused, but I didn't. The drive out was quiet, eerily quiet. Trees swallowed the road. The GPS kept glitching. When I finally reached the dirt path, the barn was there, as it always was in the stories. The boards creaked as I stepped onto the porch. I knocked twice, just like the slip said. No answer. Then a door upstairs opened, faint light spilling down the steps. "Come in," whispered a voice. I should have turned around, but I didn't. Inside, the barn smelled like yeast and rot. Boxes of Domino's stacked in piles, some newer, some decaying. I noticed names on them. Old names. Drivers who had vanished. Jordan, Ricky, Trevor, Rob. I swallowed hard. Every story I had ever heard flashed through my mind. Then I heard it. Faint footsteps from the upstairs loft. I started up the stairs thinking maybe someone was in trouble. The loft was empty, except for a freezer. I'd seen this in the stories, in the videos. Frost-covered, humming softly. The door slightly ajar. I stepped closer. Inside, the light revealed something horrifying. Hundreds of Domino's uniforms, frozen stiff. Some had name tags, Rob, Trevor, Jordan. Some faces were twisted, mouths open in silent screams. And on a shelf, a pizza box. Inside it was a receipt, freshly printed, customer me. Order one sole, hot and fresh. I tried to back away. The freezer door slammed open on its own. Frost exploded across the floor. Figures began emerging, unpale, frozen, moving stiffly like marionettes. Rob stepped forward. His cracked lips curled into a grin. "Your turn," he whispered. I ran. The barn door had closed behind me. I tried to force it open. Nothing. The floorboards beneath me creaked with every step. Then I heard it, knocking. Twice. Behind me I could see shadows moving. I burst out of the barn and into the field. It was gone again. The barn had vanished, replaced with nothing but fog and moonlight. I drove back to the store, shaking, barely able to breathe. Jeff was still outside, smoking. You made it," he said. I dropped the pizza bag on the counter. "What the hell is going on?" Jeff looked down. "Every Domino's store has one. One freezer, one order. If it's never delivered, it comes back. It finds someone new. It doesn't stop." I stared at him, voice shaking. "And if I don't deliver it," he swallowed hard, "then it comes to you." That night when I got home, there was a Domino's pizza box sitting on my doorstep. No receipt, no logo, just the smell of dough and cold air. Inside was a Domino's uniform shirt, name tag, Rob, and a small slip of paper. "Order ready. Your turn. I haven't slept properly since. Every time my phone buzzes, I check the screen. Every time my GPS glitches, I glance over my shoulder. Because I know it's coming, and I cannot refuse the delivery.